The restaurant was glowing warmly that evening, the kind of place where candles flickered gently on each table and people laughed softly over shared meals, but in one corner sat Anjali, her heart pounding harder than ever before, because tonight was supposed to be one of the most important nights of her life, a blind date she had been waiting for with equal parts excitement and nervousness. For weeks she had imagined how it might feel, how it might finally prove to her that she too was worthy of being chosen, but deep inside she carried the heavy burden of all the years of mockery she had endured, all the times people had laughed at her body, called her fat, and treated her as if her worth was measured by numbers on a scale. She had grown up with rejection as a shadow. At school she was often left out of groups, at college she was treated like a second choice, and when it came to love, she felt invisible. Yet tonight she held on to hope. She had dressed in a navy blue dress that her mother had always said made her look beautiful, curled her hair into soft waves, and whispered a prayer that the men she was meeting would see her for her heart and not her size. When he finally arrived she felt her breath catch. He smiled faintly as he looked at her, but the smile faded quickly. His eyes scanned her up and down, and before she could even begin to introduce herself properly, his words sliced through her like a knife. "I'm sorry, but you don't look like your profile picture. I can't be with someone who doesn't take care of their appearance." In that instant, Anjali's chest tightened. Tears threatened to spill, but she forced herself to hold them back, though inside she was crumbling. Her hands trembled as she reached for her purse, desperate to escape the humiliation, the sting of his rejection louder than the chatter around them, and she felt the eyes of strangers burning into her as though everyone was mocking her. But just as she began to stand, a calm, firm voice spoke from the next table. "If you don't mind, why don't you sit here with me instead?" She turned to see a man unlike anyone she expected, dressed in a simple but perfectly tailored suit, confidence in his eyes, sincerity in his smile, and though the restaurant buzzed around them, the moment stilled, because this man was no ordinary diner. He was a well-known CEO, a man who had built his empire from nothing, who people admired for his success and respected for his integrity. Everyone in the room seemed to freeze, shocked that someone of his stature would intervene, shocked that he would choose to speak to the girl who had just been labeled too fat to deserve love. Anjali hesitated, confusion and disbelief flooding her. Why would he want her to sit with him? Why would someone like him care? But he looked at her directly and said softly yet firmly, "Because I believe beauty is not about weight, it is about the heart, the soul, and the courage a person carries." And with that he signaled to the waiter to bring 2 coffees, his gesture so natural it disarmed her fear. Slowly she sat down, unsure if this was real, and as they talked the walls she had built inside began to crumble. He asked about her life, her dreams, her struggles, and she found herself sharing the wounds she had long hidden. How countless times she had been rejected not for her mind or her kindness but for her size. How she had started believing she might never be worthy of love, and he listened, really listened, in a way no one ever had. When she finished he leaned closer and said, "The world will never stop judging, but you must never let their voices drown out your own. You must know your worth, you must carry it with pride, because only when you accept yourself fully will the world have no choice but to accept you." In that moment something sparked inside her, a light that had long been dim. She felt seen, valued, not for her appearance but for her truth, and sitting there with him she realized, maybe this night was not a disaster but a turning point. Maybe fate had written a different story for her, one where rejection became the doorway to strength. And from that evening onward Anjali silently promised herself that she would no longer live under the weight of others' opinions. She would rise, she would prove herself not to the ones who mocked her but to her own reflection. And this was only the beginning of a journey that would transform everything. Dear viewer, we share this story with you because it holds a message far beyond a single date. It is about finding your worth when the world tells you you have none. It is about courage, about love, about hope. And if you felt even a spark of inspiration in Anjali's story, then make sure to subscribe to this channel, because here you will find many more stories that will touch your heart, awaken your strength, and remind you that you, too, are priceless.